I just got some interesting results back. As you can see right here, I did a urine mycotoxin test to assess for mold. The reason why I ran this test is because I was dealing with some brain fog for the last several months that I really didn't know why. So I kind of just wanted to kind of assess all the different things, rule things out. Mold could be one of those things because it causes a lot of neuroinflammation, oxidative stress. But also was dealing with some kidney issues. So I had some elevated kidney markers, not super severe, and also sinusitis that I've been dealing with. And I've been in this apartment for a year now. I was only in this apartment for 4 months last year because I was traveling so much. And so since being back, something has felt off. And what I found on this test is that it came elevated back for Ochratoxin A, which is a type of mycotoxin. It's produced by Aspergillus and penicillin species. And there's two main sources of exposure of this. One is from water damaged homes. This is an old building that I live in, and there are definitely signs of water damage, especially around the windowsills where it bubbles. Food is another source as well, and some of the big offending factors are grains. I don't eat grains personally, so it's not something I'm concerned about. But the other big ones being coffee and chocolate, as well as peanut butter, which I do consume. And so it's making me reassess those food sources. But what was really telling is that once I saw these lab results, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do something about this.
All right, this is Dr. Tyler, naturopath. Seems like a nice guy. I'm not trying to go on him as a person or anything like that, but we can use this video as an educational tool related to mold because there's some insinuations being made here with this test that I have learned over my 18 years of experience. Can be a bit misleading and needs context and an opportunity to discuss this nuanced, complex topic of mold and can it be causing your symptoms. I see people talking about mold everywhere, and mold is becoming more and more of a popular topic, but he's using a urinary mold test, one that we do use at our offices, but very little for specific reasons, but he's trying to look at the test and say, oh, this is probably why my kidney markers are up. I'm having, sinus infections, chronic sinus infections, and why I'm a little bit tired. Let's go on.
And what I found on this test is that it came elevated back for Ochratoxin A, which is a type of mycotoxin. It's produced by Aspergillus and penicillin species. And there's two main sources of exposure of this. One is from water damaged homes. This is an old building that I live in, and there are definitely signs of water damage, especially around the windowsills where it bubbles. Food is another source as well, and some of the big offending factors are grains. I don't eat grains personally, so it's not something I'm concerned about. But the other big ones being coffee and chocolate as well.
Okay, so let's break this down. So he did a urinary test to look at mold toxins. Ochratoxin A, I will tell you, in the 1,000 tests that I have looked at in both healthy and in unhealthy subjects, ochratoxin comes positive in about 75% of those cases, whether you have symptoms or not. Ochratoxin is something that is released by both penicillin and Aspergillus species. I will like to point out that the majority of those species are not harmful to humans. And so I think that's important to understand. Also, only certain people that are very sensitive, their immune systems are upregulated, or they've been dealing with some chronic illness, will be affected by this in a very negative way. So he went and got this test to see if he has maybe mold in his house. So he checked his body first. And I think he's having a bit of confirmation bias here because a lot of times when we don't feel good, we run around and look for the source in labs and go, there it is, right? We want a bad guy. And a lot of times that's confirmation bias. So a lot of times people will run to these labs and go, ooh, this is the reason I don't feel good because I don't feel good. Here's a lab value that shows high. It must be because of this. And majority of times, that is actually not where it's coming from or the root issue. And so it can be very misleading, which takes people down this path of mold. Then they get in with remediation specialists and all these tests and they get really taken advantage of. So I just want people to be careful on the mold topic, which we'll break down more in just a second.
Well as peanut butter, which I do consume. And so it's making me reassess those food sources. But what was really telling is that once I saw these lab results, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do something about this. So
right there. So everybody does that. Everyone looks at a lab, sees a value that's out of range and goes, ooh, I need to do something about this immediately. And he listed the food sources that these penicillin or aspergillus species might be on, right? The two main sources are food, but also airborne, like inside your homes. And the issue that I have with this is that a lot of times if these foods are containing mold and you're worried about mold, why not just remove all those foods and do a flush and see how you feel if it's a matter of the foods that you're eating? The other thing that he's talking about is his home. So he did a urine test to see if his home had mold. That is not the order of operations that I would recommend at all. In fact, do not start with a urinary microtoxin test. Start with a home test, right? Check your home first. Because most of the time, the mycotoxins that you would have in your body are only due to exposure in the home. Food sources of mold, while can be a player, are way, way, way less likely to be the culprit. And even without this test and some simple dietary changes, you can eliminate most of these foods that may contain mold or mycotoxins. Now, the test that you want to do for that, if you go to gotmold.com or you go to practitionerdepot.com, you can get a simple mold reader that you can put in each room with its own cassette. It's only like $220 for a couple cassettes that you can do in each room. It takes like 5 minutes of where you spend the most time to start monitoring your house. And this is what I think anyone should do anyways in this new aging architecture, quicker construction world that we live in. It's good to check any home, but it needs to be simple and affordable, and the test doesn't need to read positive every single time, which a lot of these in-home mold tests do. Hint, hint, capitalism at its best. So gotmold.com or practitionerdepot.com, you can get that. You want to check the home first to see, is there even mold in the air? Because it can be mold in places behind your walls and stuff like that, but a lot of times if it's not being picked up by a reader, it's actually not in your air quality and it's not what's making you feel bad. Let's listen more.
So I took some liposomal glutathione. This is what I use for Designs for Health. It's my favorite. It's better utilized as opposed to a supplement that you take orally, which is not readily absorbable. It's our master antioxidant. And then I took it with some carboxy from Cellcore, and this is a humic and fulvic acid binder. It works systemically, and the thing about this is it can bypass the blood-brain barrier, so it can get into the brain. And again, mold is fat-loving, it's lipophilic, so that means it likes to congregate in our fat, and so brain is one of those areas. And so it makes sense that maybe some of this brain fog could be due to neuroinflammation and oxidative stress from the mold.
Okay. He's not wrong in that people that have very thin gut blood barriers can have thinner blood-brain barriers, and things that are fat storing, which is most toxins, by the way, and things like, I guess, Ochratoxin. It is certainly possible that it can get in the brain, but to have brain fog doesn't mean you have to have things in the brain. There's a big jump happening here that I'm not quite comfortable with in insinuation. And furthermore, just because something's in your blood doesn't mean it's in your brain. So we have to be careful and do a deductive process. We don't jump from I'm having brain fog to I have neurotoxicity. Although things go chronic, it is certainly possible. We have had a lot of cases where we detox people. We have to work a lot of ALA and glutathione and things that are for the blood-brain barrier, acetylcholine A, acetyl L-carnitine, a lot of different agents that may help with this. Majority of cases, even if mold's a player, we're not finding that it's in the brain. And so I don't want to scare people. This is where it goes. It always goes from, I don't feel good. Oh, my mold test came right. Oh, it could be in my brain. Oh, it's here. Oh, it's there. Oh my God, I'm so sick. I got to take everything in the world. And now you're so afraid that you're heightening and creating your own symptoms. Like this is what happens. And I just want to be careful with some of this, what seemingly innocent information leads to the type of person that's listening.
Literally within 20 minutes of taking this carboxy, I haven't taken this stuff in forever, it felt like I just took like a shot of coffee. Like my whole brain just turned on, like it was like this veil was lifted. And I was like, are you kidding me? This makes sense.
Okay, I'm not sure what makes sense, because he's postulating a theory and then he took something for 20 minutes and then felt way better. And somehow that confirmed the hypothesis. And I want to be careful. Carboxy, great product, okay? It is a binder, so it's going to clear organic acids. It's going to clear lipopolysaccharides, which exist inside the gut. It's going to clear that, and it's going to open the liver, right? So a little bit of glutathione can get rid of a little bit of oxidative stress. If you got a sinus infection that's been chronic, that will also, FYI, make you tired. It doesn't have to be mold that is in your brain, okay? And furthermore, the gut's usually the thing that gets a little bit off. We get stressed, we get working, we get traveling. He noted that he'd been traveling a lot. The gut gets off. Taking a binder can immediately clear you up because it gets rid of some of the acids from some of the bacteria. But the idea that taking a binder with some glutathione in 20 minutes is going to get rid of neurotoxicity, and that's a confirmation that he was right on the organic acid test that he took that said he has Ochratoxin, which may or may not be from a mold that could be actually beneficial for you. Do you see the line of like descending chaos that kind of occurs? And again, no disrespect to this guy. He clearly knows his stuff in a lot of areas. In fact, I know a lot of really intelligent, really smart practitioners out there that we get so much information, we start putting all these connections together, and then our minds start to run with it. And I just want to point those things out because he did a lot of great things. Taking a binder, taking liposomal glutathione, great idea. Changing your diet, great idea. But what I see is too much of this in people turning into this fear mongering. Not that this gentleman is necessarily doing this, but people can heighten their own fear and create this chaos pattern. When in reality, this entire thing could have started with, if he was worried about mold, he should have checked indoor air quality with a $200 sensor and checked a couple different rooms in his house to see if mold is present. If it doesn't go away, and you could always just try a binder or glutathione if you're not feeling well, and if it doesn't clear up, you try a few other things. Yeah, not a bad idea to do a mycotoxin test. I don't mind them. What I mind is it is not the first pass test to look at everything else going on, and we end up getting into this line of reasoning and theory with confirmation bias, and we end up coming together with answers that aren't exactly the truth.
And so now I'm going through, I feel like, this detox protocol myself to really clear this. It has a longer half-life. Typically it stays in your system for over a month. But I just really need to nail down what is the source of this ochratoxin. And I have a mold inspector that I trust here in LA that is going to come and help me investigate if it is in samples in my home environment, because if it is, to remediate or fix the source of the mold, I can't just keep living in it. So wanted to share that.
Okay, so first off, we're jumping from there's some in my blood to I need to bring someone in to get major samples out of my house and then maybe get remediation. Many of the sample companies that are out there and the remediation companies are in on this. So they will scare you into giving them $100,000 to tear their home open, and they might not even do it right. So we have to be careful with this information because there's a lot of big business that is being drawn by fear mongering. And again, I don't think this gentleman is necessarily doing that, although he is selling tests and stuff like that, and good for him, that's fine. But it gets us down a path of no return. It turns up real quick, 0 to 100 real quick. And really we need to take some simple steps. If you're wondering if your home has poor indoor air quality, because again, it could be mold, it could be mildew, it could be VOCs. Not everything is mold, you'd be surprised. But you can start with an in-home mold test. If you keep having symptoms of like hives or allergy-like symptoms or whatever like that, you can take further tests that they would recommend. Start with something simple like that. Start with some dietary changes and a couple products, nothing wrong with that. And then if things don't clear up, maybe then that's the time to drill a bunch of holes in your walls and like have your floors ripped up and whatever else. But start in the right process, and let's be careful when we hear information to not get too caught up in the hype.